A long time no see or hear. I know that, sometimes you have to, especially in what we can only describe as a riptide of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation that has caused our uniparty, the uniparty, those politicians on both the right and the left that are owned by a central power. And because they are owned by a central power, they must engage in a central narrative. And because the central narrative can no longer be sold, what they did was put together a what? A ministry of misinformation. And isn't that great? Isn't that great that the person who is leading this ministry of misinformation was purposefully wrong about Russiagate, was purposefully wrong about masks, was purposely wrong about vaccines, was purposely wrong about the Hunter Biden laptop. And that is the issue that we find ourselves in, where you now have the exposition, the expose. You now know that there's a uniparty, that both sides, the right and the left, are in on this. And the only way that they can control this is to control the information. Those of us who have been paying attention, since the 90s, know that there has been an amazing attack on the West, on our traditions, our institutions, our very morals, our social mores, on the words themselves that define our shared reality. And what is the most terrifying, if you choose to have an emotion, is that there would be a central government source that would define your reality as they see fit. And I don't know how many friends and how many loved ones and how many enemies that we've lost in this process who said, well, I'm a progressive. And when we talk about progress, what we're talking about is time. Ultimately, we're just talking about linear time. And the sophists, the folks who, mind you, your thoughts are based on words. Your ideas are based on words. What you say, what is heard, what is understood, or purposefully misunderstood are based on words. Words that were around before we were born, and words that may or may not be around after we're gone. Think about, who knows what the hieroglyphics really meant? Who knows the origin of the Chinese characters for the words that they used to describe the reality? I could think of no scarier thing than getting a centralized government power in the name of the CCP, who then takes a character-based language and then purposefully changes, based on lies, the definitions of the very characters that you grew up knowing. Up is down, safe is not safe, men are no longer women, strength is whatever George Orwell thing you want to throw into this. And this is where we find ourselves today, where this collapsing regime knows that the mainstream megaphone that they've built is they've shit the bed Freddie Jackson. That CNN is a punchline, that MSNBC is a punchline, that every single major voice, every single major producer across these mainstreams have now suddenly found other things to do. It reminds me of when I worked in the mortgage industry. In the mortgage industry in California, I remember having a portfolio in the state of California, where in the state of California, in the mid-2000s, there were three foreclosures. And then all of a sudden, there were 2,000 foreclosures. And then all of a sudden, the CEO of my bank decided that he was going to move on for other opportunities and other interests. And the CEO of Countrywide did the same thing. And Jeff Zucker did the same thing. And Rachel Maddow is doing the same thing. They got in, they got their money, they did their job, and now they're gone. And so what is going to take place in that vacuum? What is going to fill that vacuum? If you believe, like I believe, that one of our potential outcomes of our reality, and I can paint you 4 scenarios based on the news that make the most sense to me. Either, and I said this to my folks, that the second that I discovered that one political party in this country had weaponized the intelligence community to go against the other party, I looked at my folks who are just dyed-in-the-wool East Coast liberals, and me as a center-right human moderate, said, look, let me tell you what's going to happen if indeed it's found out that one political party weaponized the intelligence community against another political party. Number 1, you lose your party. Number 2, you lose your power. Number 3, you lose Roe versus Wade. And they said, well, I don't know. We don't even know that they've weaponized the intelligence community against the one party. They were still in that process of not understanding what has truly gone on. And so now I see 4 scenarios. You are watching the purposeful destruction of the United States economy, the United States culture, the unity of the United States, the devaluation of our currency, because the uniparty has, and here are your options, of the 4 best scenarios that I can conceive of based on the news as I am experiencing it. Number 1, you got your hand caught in the cookie jar. And because you had your hand caught in the cookie jar, you lose your party, you lose your power, you lose Roe versus Wade, and on the way down and on the way out, we're going to force you, and mind you, you can do whatever you can do to get out of this because you're not getting out of this. Do you want to unleash a bioweapon against your own people? Okay, well, let's see how that works out. Are you going to try to maintain power over the population based on catchphrases and lies? Keep your doctor, keep your plan. 15 days to slow the spread. This inflation is transitory. Are we experiencing a party that is being gutted in public? They're losing on purpose. They're being forced to lose on purpose. There's a reason that they're increasing your taxes while they send money to a corrupt foreign government in the name of World War III. They're raising your food prices, your gas prices. And they're doing that purposefully to expose the fact that their leadership is beyond sus. That's scenario number 1. Or are they so convinced? Are they so knowledgeable in their ability to make you forget that in many counties around this country, more than 100% people voted? That there were thousands of ballots that showed up in the middle of the night, that the counting stopped at 10 o'clock at night or 1 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and all of a sudden who was winning is no longer winning, and the party that went from the 2016 election was stolen to how dare you ever consider that an election would be stolen, and they're so good at stealing elections that they've got the midterms rigged, they've got 2024 rigged, they've got 2028 rigged. They already know how to do it. And because they already know how to do it, it doesn't matter that they're collapsing the petrodollar right in front of you. It doesn't matter that your gas prices are going up. It doesn't matter to them that your food prices are going up. It doesn't matter to them that the border is being absolutely overrun. Now, mind you, I understand that the United States of America is in a population crash, basically. I don't have any kids. Do you have kids? Do you plan on having kids? I don't. I don't even know if I'm going to get a dog again. But what we are doing is allowing people to emigrate from South America into North America who, guess what? And I know you freaking hard right wingers don't want to hear this about immigration, but first generation migrants, be it Irish, be it Polish, be it Russian, be it German, be it from Brazil, Central or South America, or Mexico themselves, a first generation of worker, when they show up to America with all the opportunity that we have here, they work their ass off. They work their asses off way harder than my generation. I'm 4 generations moved from my family coming over to this country. And sure, I don't want to brag that I have attachments to the Mayflower Society. I don't want to brag that my family has attachments to the beginning of Harvard. But at the same time, my same family tree, one of our relatives was captured and held in slavery by the Indians. Yikes. Thanks, Ancestry.com. That's a nice thing to know. And none of us chose to be born. None of us chose how we were going to be born, in what skin, in what shell, in what predicament. Did we get the opportunity to choose our reality? And now we find ourselves in a situation where the reality is going to be controlled by a centralized mis, dis, and malinformation bureau who is going to pick and choose whether or not the information, true or not, will be put forth, will be accepted, will be propagated throughout the news streams, whatever we're creating. That's scenario number one. Scenario number one is they fucking shit the bed and now they're being forced to lose on purpose. Does that make sense to anybody? Scenario number two is they're going to rig it, and it doesn't matter how bad they rig it. It doesn't matter what they do with war. It doesn't matter how many trillions of debt they put us in. It doesn't matter how bad inflation gets. It doesn't matter how expensive gas or food gets, because they're rich. And they never have to consider the cost of the cost of staying alive. And those are the folks who are in charge, creating a centralized force. Of the 4 scenarios I see, those are the most 2 plausible. Now, if you're an Elon Musk fan, as I am, and look, and the thing is that what Elon has always said is whatever is the funniest outcome is then more than likely. So we may find ourselves in a situation where the GOP actually outperforms the devalued DNC so hard that people show up to vote so big that any amount of rigging is undone by just the sheer value of 80% of America showing up and saying, what about us? Why all of a sudden, I'm excited. I got a $15 an hour job. I was making $12 an hour. Now I have a $15 an hour job, but all of a sudden my money's worth $11. Did I really move forward? No. Now I have to get a second job. I have to get a third job in order to maintain the same lifestyle that I had before our currency was purposely devalued. Option number 3, the most funniest in my opinion, would be the GOP running the table. You get the House, you get the Senate. Biden is melting into the clone/corpse that he is. And you guys heard the beginning of the show. Well, I mean, those of you who are listening to Whiskey and the Surfer know the beginning of the show. This is fake. This is fake news. I'm a comedian. operating under an alias, who are voicing two different defunct entertainment algorithms from the year 2065. I would give my left nut to sit in Johnny Depp's experience right now and in the middle of a deposition and have them explain how this thing that does not ever exist and says that it's not real in the theme song would then have any reality or basis to be silenced based on that it may or may not go against the lie-based narrative that they're going to sell us. And so if you're going like I am, if you believe that Elon, in our march of regression, because look, progressive, whatever is the newest must be accepted, cannot be questioned. If all of a sudden the newest level of progress says that this is now this, I must believe this is now this. If I don't believe this is now this, then I will be othered. I will be an enemy. And folks, you have to realize that in a split, divided United States of America, where you have the moderates in the middle who aren't being listened to. You have the most extreme left and right wings that are not being listened to. That if you allow this to take its course throughout history, if it swings to the left of communism, then the communists decide that all the nationalists, all the traditionalists, all of people who see progressive time as different than them must be annihilated. And if the left wing loses its power, and the traditionalists, and the right wing, and the authoritarians devolve into quote-unquote Nazism, then you get an equal, and also now you're about to be removed the other way. What do we do here in the center of truth, as moderates, as Americans who love everybody equally, because that is our God-given right to do so? What do you do with the information? That there will be annihilation to the left, there will be annihilation to the right. Do you have an opinion or a thought that is different than the crafted mainstream? Then we're going to other you. We're going to send a journalist to your front door. We're going to have them search all of your records. We're going to have them find your frickin' relatives. And then we're going to destroy you. And that's what is quite alarming about this new non-centralized ministry of truth, is that the people who are on the ground floor of this ministry of truth destroyed you. If you said that Russiagate was a hoax from the beginning. They destroyed you if you chose to read the side of the mask box that said that the masks don't work against COVID-19. They destroy you if you decided that, well, as a free human being with your own human sovereignty, you believe you have the choice of whether or not to take a medical procedure. And your choice to do so in their eyes made you an enemy. Those of us who were paying attention to the Hunter Biden laptop story were shocked that all of a sudden Twitter had banned the very, very news outlet that had dropped the story. But we weren't surprised. Were we surprised? No, because it's a fix. It's been a fix from the beginning. And this is scary working backwards, that now we're morphing into this uniparty with a centralized version of truth. As we march through human progress, human development. I don't know whether or not you nerds know this, but we're cyborgs. We've chosen to adopt electronic technology via cell phone in our hands. Sure, it helps with GPS, it helps with social media, it helps crush your dopamine system and more than likely gives you cancer over time. But because we've adopted this handheld technology through the very definitions of what a cyborg is, your choice to engage in this technology means that you are now a cyborg. I'm one, you're one, It doesn't matter how much time your phone spends in your hand, or if you're watching your TV as a screen, your computer as a screen. Your screen is now a different version of reality than what you're seeing in the entirety of your view. And think about that. And I know I have a fourth scenario to get to, and I'm going to get there, all right? But if you're a progressive and you believe that you must accept lockstep the reality of what is coming, here is the new, this is the next step, I will accept, yes, I will accept, I will accept, because you have captured what they're calling linear time. We have three versions of time in reality, right? We have cyclical time, we have the seasons, reap and sow. You have linear time, which the progressives are now have control and full ownership over. But we also have messianic time for those of us of faith who believe that there will be the return of Christ himself in the seat of judgment, because in what is understood as messianic time, in the beginning already was the ending. The entirety of creation was known from the beginning. What will come again. What left will return. And so if you have a progressive uniparty that has abandoned messianic time, they've abandoned cyclical time, and there is only one time that you can exist in, and that time is linear. That time is progress. That time is progressive. That time is the new reality that we're selling you, that if you do not accept wholeheartedly, whole-brained, whole gut, then we're going to other you and we're going to destroy you. I wish I could make it simpler for folks to understand. And in my philosophy is simplicity. If you want to talk about overall health, there's a reason that those of us who saw the beginning of the end of the United States moved to do what? We moved to go to a smaller town. We moved to engage closer with our faith. We became more healthy. You lost a bunch of weight. You're now existing as a person who knows that we're going to be encountering the most choppy waters ahead, and you got ahead of the situation. And I will invite you right now to choose to reorder your life, to make sure that your sleep is the utmost importance, okay? That your diet comes in third. Yeah, that's right. You want to put your life in order? It's your sleep, it's your exercise, and it's your diet. And then from this more grounded, healthy perspective, in the same way you're no longer absorbing and consuming the garbage of the dying mainstream, you're not consuming the garbage of culture, which is food that is designed to kill you. You're no longer eating processed information and processed foods, you're eating natural foods. You're drinking your 64 to 120 ounces of water a day. You're going out and getting your 15 to 20,000 steps because you understand that the actual act of walking is one of the best and most meditative things that you can do, and you will get the best and the newest and the brightest and the most effective new ideas coming through the very center of your heart and gut center as you engage with the natural surroundings, as you go out about your day, joyfully enjoying your 15,000 to 20,000 steps a day. And that's something you can do now. In the philosophy of simplicity, we keep it simple. Sleep, exercise, food. It's an order. You give and then you get. You ask and then you receive. You listen and then you speak. So when God says in the beginning, means that there's an ending, means that there's an end. Means that as we move from chaos, the chaos of subjectivity into the objectivity of now, that we now have a set parameter of orders that you can follow to keep yourself the most healthy, the most happy, and the most engaged human animal on this planet as culture devolves around us. Option number 3, the GOP runs a table. They get the House. They get the Senate. They want to go full ham impeachment and stop the destruction of the United States immediately. Then here comes impeachment. Here comes Donald Trump as Speaker of the House. He lords over the impeachment of both Biden and Harris. And if Elon is right, that the funniest outcome will be the most probable, then I can think of no funnier thing than Donald Trump as Speaker of the House, looking down the barrel of that camera and being like, hey, you clone of a corpse, you kleptocrat who was taking 10% of illegal deals out of Ukraine, 10% of illegal deals out of China. Who knows whether or not you're in on Vladimir Putin's goals of taking over the Russian heartland? We don't know. What I do know is when Boris Yeltsin was in charge of Russia in the 90s, he was best friends with Bill Clinton. And when it was time for Yeltsin to leave his base of power because he had already devalued the ruble, they had already said that he was a captured product. Hey, my replacement is this guy, Vladimir Putin. He's cool. Is it out of school to think that the Clinton Foundation and the Uniparty is just kayfabing that they have a problem with Vladimir Putin, when indeed his aggressive actions can keep a Uniparty in power, can keep a Uniparty flowing money through weapons and through programs and through the further devaluation of their own currency? I don't know. I don't know geopolitics good enough to understand what the long-range plan is, other than if you look at the map of the United States and its connection to South America, you see that, okay, well, you have the North America, you have South America, you have Greenland. We are allies with Europe. We're more than likely better allies with China. We're allies with New Zealand. We're allies with Australia, which means that you have Vladimir Putin in charge of Russia. And his ability and his need to sustain this 1,000-year-old empire means that if he like to, he can expand his landmass all the way to Dublin, Ireland, and all the way into the South China Sea, if he chooses to see fit. Because in the same way that if you run afoul of the Uniparty by having a different opinion, how do you think he feels? Everyone's like, oh, he's sick. He's not going to live that long. Oh, I was watching this and it says that. Is that any different than when they said that Donald Trump had dementia? It's no different. They don't know. They don't know what his plans are. They don't know what his ideas are. They don't know what his end game is. All they know is that they have to other their political opponent in order to create the annihilation that's been baked into this. And that was the plan that was going when there was only a singular polar world. We were in charge. And now we have a multipolar world. We're going to have Russia as a force, China as a force, India as a force, the United States and South America as a singular force. Eventually, we're going to adopt Canada once they dump their communist prime minister. And you're going to, if you look at the map of the world, you're going to have two distinct land masses. And we have us over here, the Atlanticists, who have a sea-based military versus the Eurasian continent, which is a land-based military. In the collapse of Russia, in the collapse of the USSR, they had everything sewn up. You could not invade that country. But by the time the USSR had collapsed, the 9 ways you could invade the USSR were down to 1. They had one of the 9 blocked. And now because of this action that they're taking on Moldova, they're taking on Ukraine, it's closing these gaps that they cannot be invaded. It would make sense that he would then launch an attack against Poland. He would launch an attack against Europe. He would launch an attack against France. He would launch an attack against the UK. Because if the progressives have taken over, quote unquote, linear time, whatever the newest thing must be adopted, then Putin, Alexander Dugin, his fourth political theory, says what? Well, guess what? We're a 1,000-year-old empire. We're a land-based empire. We have messianic time on our side. We have cyclical time on our side. And not only that, we're going old school. Because if you believe that the progressive pendulum has reached its zenith, when it can no longer climb any further forward into progress, it's going to swing back. The collapse of modernity is going to swing back into a more traditional America, where you move to a small town, you embrace your faith, and you embrace your health. Where if a country wants to take over the rest of Europe and China, that they engage in on-the-ground warfare, and they actually get based. And through that being based, they run roughshod over a government like the United States that can do nothing to stop it, other than bankrupt their own people by sending ammo and munitions. So the question is the DNC losing on purpose? Are they ruining this country because they've already figured out how to rig the midterms in 2024 and 2028? Is the GOP going to run the table, go full ham and go full impeachment? Or are we staring into the face of World War III nuclear proliferation? And I wish I could tell you that I knew exactly, but as far as the news that I'm experiencing, that I'm being allowed to see, based on the words that I'm still allowed to use, based on the concepts that I'm allowed to understand. Mind you, when I tried to figure out what fourth political theory was, when I tried to figure out why Putin was doing what he was doing, I went to find the book on fourth political theory, and Amazon had banned it. I don't know if you, for those of us like me who grew up with underground music, when you found your favorite album through the sticker on somebody's guitar, that as soon as you tell me that I can't read something of a political nature, well, fuck yeah, I'm going to go read it, and I'm going to go figure out, and I'm going to go understand it. And at its very, very root, like we've said before, time has three elements: messianic time, cyclical time, linear progressive time. The progressives here in the United States have adopted only one of those three. And what Putin did in response is he adapted all three. And now we're going to see and figure out if the Western liberal hegemony is going to be able to withstand Dugin and Putin's fourth political theory. More than likely, you're going to be running headlong towards the sunset with a nuclear bomb going off. And the only advice that I can give you is to look around to the fellow human beings who are also running for their lives. Tell them that you love them. Tell them that it's going to be okay. You're going to die. Your physical body is going to be removed from your experience. You're going to experience the love that this has always been from the entirety of our experience. And you're going to be then given to go and walk across that veil for your awaiting judgment. And if you've done so with a clean soul and a clean heart, and you've been absolved of your sins, then the advocate, our Lord Jesus Christ, will show up, and he will advocate for you, and you will be entered into the kingdom of heaven. If you have sin in your life that has not been absolved, then that sin is going to be attached with demons who are going to come into that realm of your judgment and whisper into your ear that you have never been worthy enough for salvation, and you will damn yourself to hell. Or none of it's real. I don't know. I'm just a guy with a philosophy degree making a podcast in his freaking kitchen. But how is that any more or less true than the centralized version of the nonsense of the uniparty that is being forced upon us? And so the four scenarios that I see, of the future that I see, this is Whiskey and the Surfer.